Hello everyone and welcome to our lesson on section 3.5 from our textbook, and in our notes it's called collecting like terms. Last class when we did all those definitions, whether you were in class or whether you were online, you learned what like terms were, and we are only dealing with like terms in this section. So I'm going to review what like terms are and show you how you can collect them, and then you'll have a little 2-page handout after this in order to complete, and hopefully you understand the lesson. So let's move on here. Before we start to collect like terms, we have to recall what like terms are. So remember that like terms are terms which have the same variable, which is a letter, and the same exponent, which is the power on the letter. So as an example, 3x and 4x, you see how they have the same variable or the letter, which is x? And they have the same power or exponent, which in this case we can't see it, but it's just a 1. So because it's x to the power 1 and x to the power 1, these are like terms, even though one starts with a 3 and one starts with a 4. It's how the term ends. 3x, 4x, they're both x's. So those are like terms. In this one here, 2b cubed, negative 7b cubed. These are both b cubes. If I were to get rid of the number in front, they are the exact same. So if I got rid of the coefficient in front, and if I got rid of the coefficient in front, are those two the exact same? They are, so they're like terms. But as soon as you change either the variable, do you see how this 4x, I changed it to 4y? These are unlike terms. Or you change the exponent. You see how this 3 went to a 2? These are now unlike terms. And see how these don't sound the same? 3x, 4y, 2b cubed, negative 7b squared. They're not the same. So we're going to practice to make sure we understand between like terms and unlike terms before I get to showing you how to collect them here. And again, this is a handout right from your notes, okay, from chapter 3, so you should be following along. What I'm going to do right now is not in your notes, it's just to practice like terms, but we'll be coming back to this note and you can start to fill out a little bit in here. So just a little practice for like terms, and again, you do not have this handout, but just to practice. This says find the like terms. Now what I would ask for you to do is after I get done talking, just pause the video and scroll through all these puzzle pieces and see which ones you think are like terms. But you have a bunch of different terms here and you want to put the pieces together that are like terms. Now you can't move these at your computer, but you can at least look and try to find some like terms in here. So pause the video, take a couple minutes and look, and then restart the video. All right, welcome back. So I'm going to take this up. If I start with this piece right here, which is an x, I'm going to look for other x terms. No, this is an x squared. No, there's a piece right there. Do you see how this is an x? I don't care that there's a half in front. It is an x term, and those are like terms. X and a half x. No. Oh, there's another piece right here. 4x. Those are all like terms. And when I scan the rest, I do not see any more x terms. So I think those are the 3 pieces. I'll start with this one here, which is 2x squared, and I look for other x squared terms, and I find one right here, an x squared term. There's 5 of them. So this is a like term. Scroll through. Here's another one, negative 3x squared. See how all 3 of these are x squareds, x squareds, x squareds? These are like terms. Scrolling through, I think there's one more set of these x, y, and then a squared. These are all x, y's, then a squares. I don't care that this first one's a negative. This is a nothing in front. This is a 3. This looks close, but you see how the squared is on the wrong letter? These are not like terms. This is all by itself. And this is squared both. This is all by itself. So that's how you would piece those together. All right. Next, classify each pair of terms as either like terms or unlike terms. You do not have this handout in class, but I want you to pause the video again and look at all of these, all 8, and see whether you would classify them as like or unlike. And after you know, come back to the note here. So pause the video and see what you can do with these. Okay, welcome back. The first set of terms here is a 2x and a negative 5x. Those are like terms. They both end in x. 3y, 3z. Ooh, this one's a y, this one's a z. Those are unlike terms. Different variables. Negative x squared, a half x squared. These are both x squareds, like terms. 4a squared, 3a cubed. The exponent or power is different. These are unlike terms. 2ab and 3a squared, unlike terms. 5x squared y and negative 2xy squared. This right here is very similar to what we did here with this one. This does not match this group because the squared's on the wrong letter. Just like here, these are not like terms because the x is being squared here and the y is being squared here. So these are unlike terms. 3uv and 2vu. Although they don't look identical, this is a u and a v, this is a u and a v. It doesn't matter that they have switched order. These are in fact like terms, even though the variables are wrote the different way, the opposite way. And when I look at h, 9 and the negative 4, I don't care about, but we have a p squared and a q cubed. Here we have a q cubed and a p squared. It's very similar to this one where your two variable terms are just in the opposite order. These are still like terms because you've got a p squared and a p squared and a q cubed and a q cubed. These are like terms. All right, after this, pause the video and see if, after I get done talking, and see if you can match up which term here goes with its like term over here. They match up 1 to 1. So pause the video, see if you can match them up, and then you can hit play and come back. Okay, welcome back. Let's match up these terms. 3x squared and 4x squared. There's your first set of like terms. A negative x and a 7x. Those are both x's. xy, negative 4xy. 2y squared and a y squared. 5x squared y, 3x squared y. And negative 7y and a half y. So there they are. And lastly, write two like terms for each of these. Now, the answers can vary. I just came up with some of my own, but if I have a 5m, what's a like term? 6m, or 7m, or anything in m. What about negative x? Anything x, 3x, or just an x, those are like terms. 2y squared, 0.5y squared, 100y squared. These are all y squareds, like terms. 3ab, 4ab, and just to practice up here, these two, I flipped the a and the b to show you that 5ba is also a like term. So hopefully you know what like terms are and unlike terms are, because now we're going to go to our note and you're going to actually show how to collect these like terms. So let's look at the rules for collecting like terms. There's 4 rules here that we're going to follow, and I've spread them out pretty good here. So each one has only one thing to do, but onto your note. And again, you have this note, so you can copy this into the space. The first thing you can write is the first thing we're going to do in collecting like terms is we're going to put the like terms together. We're going to group them together. And the key is to move the sign with the term. I will show you in these examples what I mean. But make sure you move the sign with the term. After you move them, you can only add or subtract like terms. You cannot add or subtract unlike terms. When you add or subtract, you only add or subtract the coefficients of the like terms, the numbers out front. keep the same variable. So copy this into your notes, maybe pause the video and copy it, but group the like terms together and move the sign with it. Add or subtract like terms only. You add or subtract the coefficients of those like terms and you keep the variable. So when I look at this very first question, I ask myself, how many terms are there? A 3G and a 7G, separated by a plus sign. One term, two terms. Are these like terms? Yes, because this is a G, and even though we don't see it, they're both raised to the power of 1. So I can add these together, and how I do that is I add the coefficients. So I go 3 plus 7 is equal to 10, and that's my new coefficient. But I make sure to keep the same variable. I don't change the G. First one is done. I look at the second one, and I see how many terms I have. A 4x squared, a 3x, and a negative 8x squared. These are not all like terms, but the 4x squared and the negative 8x squared are like terms. These are like terms. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to move these terms around. It's almost like a Kit Kat bar. You just broke this piece off, you broke this piece off, and you broke this piece off, and you're moving them around. The first piece is the 4x squared, so I'm going to write that right here. Now I'm going to move my piece of the Kit Kat bar, this negative 8x squared, I'm going to move it next to it. I'm grouping my like terms together, and I'm moving the sign. Do you see the negative, the subtraction with the 8? I'm moving with it, so it is subtract 8x squared. I've moved that right after the 4x squared. So the plus 3x moves to the end, and I keep the plus with the 3x. Now what I can do is I can solve a question like this right here. 4x squared minus 8x squared. That's just like something like this. So how do I subtract these? I just go 4, take away 8. And 4 subtract 8 is negative 4. Add or subtract the coefficients. Keep the variable. I'm keeping the x squared. Now this plus 3x is just tacked on the end. We don't need to try to combine these two because they're unlike terms. We can only add or subtract like terms. We are done with this one. Next, let's color coordinate this here. I'm going to use lines this time. Sometimes people like to highlight. Sometimes when I was in your shoes there in grade 9, I used to underline. So I take a look at my first term. I have a 2y. This is a negative 3x. Oh, here's a y term. So I'm going to put this line right underneath the negative y, and I got a positive 4x. So I've got a single line underneath the two y terms. Now I've got an x term here, so I'm going to put 2 lines under that x term. And I've got another x term here. I'm going to put 2 underneath. So do you see how we have 2 sets of like terms? We have the 2y and the negative y, the negative 3x and the positive 4x. So we're going to move these so they're next to each other. So I start with this 2y, and I move the y after it, but I keep this sign with it. This is going with the y to the 2y right there. Then I write the negative 3x, or the subtract 3x, and then I write the plus 4x. So by putting these together, I used to always think that I was merging my lines. Do you see here I have 2y take away y, and I can solve that. And now I've got this second one, which is actually not a subtraction. This is negative 3x plus 4x. I always pretended that, and I'll show this to you because I think it's important. I have 2 separate problems. The first one was 2y take away y, and that gave me an answer of just a y, 1y. But then when I did the second one, and this moved over to here, this is not a subtract 3 anymore. If I just had this problem, it's a negative 3x plus 4x. So negative 3 plus 4 is positive 1 of these x's. That's a tough thing to understand in grade 9, that that's a negative and not a subtraction. It's almost like you have two problems. It ends there, and the new one starts there, so that's a negative. But now I can take these and do two things. I can get rid of the ones, and I usually just put the x's before the y's because that's how they come in the alphabet. So I just flip the two terms, x plus y. We don't need the ones in front. All right. Next, last one. 7x squared. I'll use highlighting again. Not an x squared. The next term is not an x squared. This is not an x squared. This is not an x squared. Oh, this is an x squared, so I'm taking the sign with it. And this is not an x squared. Next, we have a negative 4 of these x's. This is not an x term. I have negative 5 of these x's. And I also have 10 of these x's. The last term is this plus 3 all by itself. So what I need to do is I need to move these terms so that I have my like terms together. So I'm going to start with the 7x squared. Not an x squared, not an x squared, not an x squared, but this one is. So I'm going to put it right next to it. All the x squareds are gone, so I'm going to move to my next type of term, which is just an x term, and I will put negative 4x, a negative 5x, and a positive 10x. Those all go together. And the very last term is this positive 3. So if I take my highlighter again and just show you what I need to do, I need to solve this little problem here. I need to solve this little bigger problem here. And then lastly, I just have this plus 3 hanging around. So when we actually solve this, 7x squared plus, don't forget there's a 1 here, 1x squared, I end up with 8. This is my yellow. Simplified. Now I go to the blue or the greens. This is negative 4, take away 5, plus 10. This is not a subtraction. Negative 4, take away 5, plus 10. That leaves me with a plus 1x or just an x. And that's the green right here. So if that was the yellow, this would be the green right here, a positive x or 1x. In the blue, the 3 doesn't have anything to combine with, so it is just sitting all by itself. But when we take the colors away, the question will look like this when you do it: your x squareds, your x's, your 3. And then combine these, and the 3 comes along for the ride. So hopefully you understood that. Hopefully you kind of have an idea about collecting like terms. Please try your best when you're in class next. I will go over anything that's giving you trouble, but move your like terms together and move the sign with them. You only can add or subtract like terms. I can't combine these two. They're unlike terms. I can't combine any more because these are all like terms. You can only add or subtract like terms. And you do that by adding or subtracting the coefficients only and keep the same variable. And just be aware that when you move your terms and when you end a set of terms, like terms, and your next set of terms starts with this subtraction or this negative, it is now a negative. It's negative 3 plus 4. When we move these terms and when I'm done with my x squareds, this is now negative 4, subtract 5 plus 10. So good luck with the homework, and the homework is the handout that follows this. There's a handout, I think there's 2 sides to it, on collecting like terms. So good luck, get on Edsby, and please send me any messages for any trouble that you're having. So thanks, and that was our lesson on adding, subtracting like terms, collecting like terms.